Y'all know what time it is. So Gypsy posted this a couple of days ago on her TikTok. Am I the only one that feels like this is an uncomfortable picture? And it's not because it shows a display of affection. It kind of shows something forced. Like, what is happening right here? Look at his body language. Look at hers. Y'all, tell me what you think in the comments down below, because I know what I think, but I want to see if y'all think the same thing. These are the people that sit on lives talking smack about me. You see this one right here? Did she try to put on a contour or something? Like, what is happening with her face? Like, girl, you look a hot mess talking smack about me. I'm a big bag. I'm just saying, I got to put this out there. And I don't even care what anybody thinks at this point, because they talk trash to me all the time. So let's just look at that. Now, I want y'all to really pay attention to this picture. This is Gypsy's maternity pictures. I think it's very interesting. That's all I'm going to say. This is another one I think is very interesting. But now we're going to go back and spin this block. Y'all tell me what you think down below. I'm not going to say nothing. I'm going to wait for y'all to say something. In my next video, I'll do a response. Now, you know we've all been saying that his dog does not like Gypsy. She felt the need to post this picture first. I just want y'all to know that. I just thought that that was very, very funny, because we know what it is. It's clear. But anyway, y'all see this. Now, y'all, Jaguar Wright won an award. We spoke about this yesterday, right? But I started thinking about it, and I was like, something is not right. I think something's coming down the pipelines. And look, I've never said that I don't believe anything Jaguar Wright says. I believe there's some truth to stuff that she says, but I also think there's truths mixing with some untruths. But it'll be interesting to see how everything plays itself out. But I also think she's being used. Look, take it for what you want. Let's watch how this plays out. But I have a gut feeling, and my gut always leads me in the right direction. Everyone in Hollywood has to be shaking in their boots right now. Jaguar Wright just won a Freedom Fighter Award from the government. You can't tell me something's not getting ready to come down pipelines. Like, this is actually pretty big. Hollywood, I would be scared. One of Diddy's attorneys quit this morning. I don't think that's a coincidence. I think Diddy's cooked. I thought he was cooked before, but the fact that Jaguar Wright won a Freedom Fighter Award, y'all, something is getting ready to come down the pipelines, and I think it's going to be bad. I think it's going to be real bad. Am I the only one that thinks this? Tap in, y'all, because I can't be the only one that thinks this. There's no way I'm the only one that thinks this. Y'all, it looks like there's some trouble in paradise for Jayz. And people keep saying that these tickets Beyonce was selling is because, you know, she trying to make sure they funds is up. But let me know what y'all think. Watch this.
Jayz was just hit with a mega lawsuit over Cash App. I am shocked that the media hasn't covered this huge lawsuit against Jayz and Jack Dorsey, the owner of Block Incorporated, who owns Cash App. And a lot of people are wondering, why would Jayz be brought up in this mega lawsuit? Well, Jayz actually sits on the board of directors for Block Incorporated. And Jack Dorsey, Jayz, and other board members are being sued in this lawsuit, alleging that there is illegal money that has been being ran through Cash App. And they're alleging that they knew about it and they let it happen to make themselves some money. Now, Jack Dorsey is the same person that Jayz sold a huge stake of his company Tidal to back in 2021. And this is how Jayz ended up on the board of directors for Block Incorporated, which is the company owned by Jack Dorsey, who owns Cash App. Do y'all remember back in 2024 when members of Block were told to not discuss Jayz, a board member of the company, on internal communication channels? The employees were given a stern warning, but they were not told why. Jayz and Jack Dorsey have done a lot together. These two are the ones that launched the Bitcoin Academy on Cash App. But now that you got the background, let's go ahead and jump into this crazy lawsuit. Now, this lawsuit is filed by a man with the last name Patel, who is a shareholder in Block Incorporated. As you can see, he's suing Jack Dorsey, Sean Carter, and a lot of other board of director members. Now, this shareholder is alleging from 2019 to 2023, Block experienced explosive growth, with its revenue growing from $1.31 billion in 2019 to $21.92 billion in 2023. But he is alleging that it was unknown to the public that this rapid growth was largely driven by widespread use of the company's platforms for illegal activities. He is alleging that the company's officers and the members of its board issued statements that were materially false and misleading, saying that they failed to disclose the company's lack for adequate customer due diligence practices and failed to adequately monitor the nature of transactions that were being processed on the company's platforms. He alleged that the company's management imposed minimal obligations on users seeking to open accounts or transact on the company's platforms and encouraged the use of Bitcoin, which together allowed the company to become a haven for unlawful activities. He said the company's management ignored red flags indicating that Square and Cash App were being widely used for a variety of unlawful and unethical activities, including money laundering, child SA, trafficking, terrorism, contact unalivings, and transactions in the violation of economic sanctions. On March 23rd of 2023, the Hindenburg Research published a report alleging that Block's explosive growth was driven by the company's willingness to facilitate fraud against consumers and the government, avoid regulation, dress up predatory loans and fees, and mislead investors. The report revealed that Cash App was allegedly widely used for trafficking, consumer scams, COVID-19 relief fraud, and even contact unaliving payments. The report alleged that it allowed people to remain anonymous or operate under blatantly false identities. The Hindenburg report also detailed interviews with former Block employees who explained that the company systematically suppressed internal and user complaints related to rampant fraudulent and criminal activity on the company's platform. On February 16th of 2024, NBC News reported that federal regulators were investigating allegations by two whistleblowers that Cash App failed to perform adequate due diligence on its customers, including by failing to implement any effective procedure to establish their identities, leading to the widespread use of the company's platform for illicit activities. The NBC News report alleged that the company's management was not only aware that the company was failing to conduct customer due diligence, but it was also intentionally failing to conduct such due diligence as a means of maximizing the opening of new customer accounts to generate more revenue. On May 1st of 2024, NBC News reported that federal prosecutors were investigating the company after allegations by a former employee that Block has failed to conduct basic due diligence on its customers. Square had processed thousands of transactions involving countries subject to economic sanctions, including Cuba, Iran, Russia, and Venezuela. Block had also processed multiple cryptocurrency transactions for terrorist groups. The two NBC News reports corroborated the allegations contained in the Hindenburg report. As of March 31st of 2024, defendant Dorsey beneficially owned 1 million shares of a Class A Block common stock worth roughly $81.5 million. Defendant Sean Carter has served as a member of the board since May of 2021, and according to public filings, defendant Carter received $289,720 in 2023 in compensation from the company. As of March 31st of 2024, defendant Carter beneficially owned 38,073 shares of Class A block common stock worth roughly $3.1 million. Now, this shareholder is saying by the reason of their positions as officers and or directors of block, because their ability to control the business and corporate affairs of block, the individual defendants owe block and its shareholders the obligation of trust, loyalty, good faith, due care, and they were and are required to use their utmost ability to control and manage block in a fair, just, honest, and equitable manner. The individual defendants were and are required to act in furtherance of the best interests of block and its shareholders to benefit all shareholders equally. Now, they're alleging that this is conspiracy and aiding and abetting. They are saying in committing the wrongful acts alleged here, the individual defendants have pursued or joined the pursuit of a common course of conduct and have acted and conspired with one another in furtherance of their wrongdoing. The individual defendants caused the company to conceal the true facts alleged here. The individual defendants further aided and abetted or assisted each other in breaching their respective duties. The purpose and effect of the conspiracy, common enterprise, or common course of conduct was, among other things, to felicitate and disguise the individual defendants' violation of the law, including the breaches of duty and unjust enrichment. What they're trying to say is allowing these illegal activities to happen to make themselves richer. This lawsuit is huge. It has a lot more information in it. It's about 60 pages long, so I cannot read this whole thing, but I will go at it over on my Patreon at Kadisha Lynn if you're interested in reading through this whole thing, because it is pretty crazy. And mind you, this is a huge lawsuit, but y'all let me know what you guys think about all this in the comments.
Now, I saw this on TikTok last night, and I wanted to share this with you guys because there's a man that was just found innocent, and he was innocent this whole time, and he spent almost 30 years in prison. Tell me what you think. Now, you know what time it is. It's Black History Month time. Let me know what you guys think of this, because I actually really love this segment, and I think it's very interesting. This is something I didn't know, so I'm learning along with you when it comes to this particularly.
Guns, berets, and leather jackets may be the images you associate most with the Black Panther Party. But what you may not know is how the political group shifted healthcare in the U.S. to be more community-based.
Our government was not going to provide healthcare, so we were going to provide healthcare for the people.
The Black Panthers opened free medical facilities, created the very first nationwide screening program for sickle cell anemia, a blood disorder, and they even helped establish a form of acupuncture that's still in use today.
We spent a lot more time serving the people than we did protesting or defending ourselves from the police.
So why isn't the Black Panthers' healthcare activism more widely known? Well, it may be by design.
History is written by the victors. The Black Panthers are not writing the history of the Black Panthers Party.
To understand what prompted the Black Panthers' foray into healthcare, you first have to understand why it came into existence. Here's how co-founder Huey P. Newton explained the group.
We are bound to transform society and erect a system where people will receive justice.
The Panthers formed on the heels of the Civil Rights Movement, a time when the push for racial equality and equity divided the U.S. 1965 was a pivotal year that helped spark the Panthers' creation, according to former Black Panther Billy Jennings.
You had the murder of Malcolm X in February. Also, you had the signing of the Voting Rights Act of 1965, and also you had the Watts riot happened in August of 1965, along with the Selma March in 1965.
Then, in the fall of 1966, a white police officer ran down and killed an unarmed teenager in a historically Black neighborhood in San Francisco. It was a breaking point. The community rioted. The governor declared a state of emergency, and the next day, National Guard soldiers marched with bayonets through the streets. This was the fertile ground in America's landscape that prompted Newton and Bobby Seale to found the Black Panthers Party for Self-Defense in October 1966. The Black Panthers' initial mission was to police the police. Panthers followed patrol vehicles ready to defend their communities with force if they felt the need arose. This is the part of their legacy that the world remembers. But the physical self-defense was a fraction of the Panthers' objectives. As their movement grew, so did their vision. Dr. Tolbert Small was a physician to the Black Panthers, though he wasn't a party member.
They were not just people in black jackets carrying guns. They were interested in actually doing something for the community.
The Black Panthers focus more on what they call survival programs, things like food assistance, free education, free legal aid. And one of their top priorities was free community health care.
Most of our civilized countries will provide these services for the people. The Panthers realized that we didn't have a civilized country. We were not providing these services for the people.
As a young doctor, Small treated political activists like Angela Davis and George Jackson in prison. And when Bobby Seale issued a directive for all chapters to establish free health clinics in 1970, the Black Panther Party turned to Dr. Small to help build the program.
I had all the pharmaceutical companies donating medicines to the George Jackson Free Clinic. I had doctors volunteering, nurses volunteering, med techs volunteering there.
Sheba Haven, who was a member of the Black Panther Party, says the Black Panthers' approach to healthcare was radical.
I think that they had a great impact on medicine in general because they were progressive, not just in the idea that healthcare is a right, but in the way that healthcare is delivered.
The Black Panther Party interceded in places where the U.S. government was seemingly absent, like its nationwide screening program for sickle cell disease. It was a first.
The government was not prioritizing sickle cell anemia for the same reason that Jackie Robinson had to be the first black baseball player in 1948, for the same reason that the black troops were segregated during World War II. There was racism in this country. Sickle cell anemia was a disease that affected mostly black folks.
Sickle cell is the single most common genetic disease in the United States, and the vast majority of patients are African American. It's painful and deadly, and in 1970, the country only allocated less than $100,000 in funding.
It spent $7.8 million on muscular dystrophy, $1.6 million on cystic fibrosis, $8 million to get a man on the moon. And obviously, sickle cell anemia was not a priority.
Then an intriguing thing happened in 1972. John Lennon invited Black Panther members and collaborators to appear on one of the most popular talk shows of the day, The Mike Douglas Show. And they seized the platform to address the problem of sickle cell disease.
We've tested 30,000 people in sickle cell anemia. I think we've tested more than anybody in the country.
And just like that, sickle cell became part of the national conversation. The Panthers used their medical infrastructure to run tests for sickle cell in cities all over the country. So it is objectively true that one of the defining public health initiatives of the early 1970s wasn't launched by the U.S. government, but by an organized group of socialist advocates. The initiative gained so much momentum that President Nixon signed legislation to aid research on finding a cure for the disease. By this point, the Black Panthers had become a major cultural force operating on the international stage. Their philosophy shared common ground with Maoists in China. And as China began to normalize relations with the U.S., they invited Huey P. Newton to visit months before receiving President Nixon. And that visit was a major reason why acupuncture entered the American mainstream.
Acupuncture existed in the Chinese community already, but the Chinese community in America was more insular and more like an enclave. Right? We introduced it to the rest of the world.
The year after Newton visited China, he sent a delegation of 19 people to the country, including Dr. Small.
When they came back from 1972, we started talking about acupuncture more. And we had people practicing acupuncture on both coasts.
The Black Panthers also helped run the first health clinic to implement 5-point ear acupuncture. That protocol is still used today to treat conditions like drug addiction and post-traumatic stress. So the group had a major influence on healthcare initiatives in the U.S. Why then does it seem like that narrative has been hidden? Why are the Panthers so often associated with this rather than this? It's partly because of controversial FBI Director J. Edgar Hoover and a little program you may have heard of before, COINTELPRO.
Well, one of the things that J. Edgar Hoover always talked about was black people being unified, a messiah coming to unify black people, which he was terrified of because he was a racist.
COINTELPRO, or Counterintelligence Program, was a propaganda and surveillance operation that the FBI used to target activists, political groups, and minorities.
COINTELPRO was basically designed to destroy members of the movement that they felt was a threat to the American government and the American way of life.
COINTELPRO's goal was to discredit leaders and divide movements, or as the FBI put it at the time, to pinpoint potential troublemakers and neutralize them.
The power structure did not want to show the survival programs of the Panthers. They wanted to paint them as people who were committing crimes and violence.
Of the 290 operations carried out by COINTELPRO, the Panthers were targets of 245. For those of you that enjoy math, that's more than 84%. Hoover personally instructed 14 different FBI field offices to submit imaginative and hard-hitting counterintelligence measures aimed at crippling the Panthers. They sent death threats, offensive cartoons, and forged letters to different members in an attempt to disrupt and divide the group. Perhaps the most insidious part about COINTELPRO was how effective it was in controlling the narrative around the party.
What the FBI and the government wanted to push, that the Black Panther Party was a black and angry group and they were anti-white.
So if you want to paint someone as a devil, you're not going to paint them as providing health care, providing free food, taking care of elderly people to the hospital, providing a free ambulance service like we did in North Carolina.
And in a way, it worked. Years of police raids, misinformation, incarceration, and killings not only reduced membership, it left the organization financially crippled and ultimately unable to carry out its social programs. The Black Panther Party was officially disbanded in 1982. Today, many of the same structural inequities that the Black Panthers fought against continue, including access to health care. That's resulted in some devastating statistics for African Americans. In 2017, the American Heart Association said that African Americans have the worst cardiovascular health and more deaths from heart disease than any other group. They also have higher rates of HIV, diabetes, and chronic kidney disease.
The Panthers recognized that there's racism in healthcare, and which is why they got involved in trying to provide health care for the community.
But the Black Panther Party's legacy lives on. Many Panthers and volunteers with the party have gone on to work long careers in public health and medicine.
The legacy of the Black Panther Party will never be forgotten because those things are embedded within people's families.
Shortly before he was killed by police in 1969, Black Panther Fred Hampton said this:
"That you can jail a revolutionary, but you can't jail a revolution." Right.
And that revolution always included a demand for health care as a basic human right.
I have never been gaslit this bad. I'm doing research for my paper, and I found out, I didn't know before, that Jim Crow was the name of a character in minstrel shows where they used to do blackface and make fun of slaves. I didn't know that Jim Crow was likely the name of a young slave that the songwriter saw as he was going by on the road, and he said that the man was severely crippled, but still he was dancing, and that became the foundation of Jim Crow. So that musician proceeded to cover his face with tar and perform wearing ripped up rags, and that was the representation of the black community. When white people saw that, they thought that that name perfectly embodied the restructuring at the time. They called it the Redemption era, after the antebellum era, where they decided not to pay attention to the 14th and 15th Amendment and just make all these laws that made it impossible to be a person, to have any value. I really didn't understand that all this stuff was so very connected and so in our face. I've been running into a lot of barriers. A lot of the stuff's not written down because they didn't let enslaved people learn how to read or write, and they didn't want them to be able to speak their native languages. They didn't want them to be able to keep this kind of history alive. And I get why, because I'm literally sitting here in a study room by myself, crying in front of my screen because I can't believe they treated people like this and called themselves the civilized ones. So that was just a little PSA. Stay woke, stay blessed.
I hope you guys enjoyed this. Let me know your thoughts down below, and you guys have a great day. Bye-bye for now.